Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.
What's up, everybody? I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
And this is the Magic Mike Show, episode 413, Mr. Somich.
Huzzah!
An on-time huzzah. We literally were sitting here going, 3, 2, okay, now it's time. We were ready to go live before it was officially time, and we just can't do that. That's not us.
No.
I mean, the fact that we made it here on time is impressive enough.
On time is 5 minutes early for the Magic Mike Show.
That's true. That's right. And Bree was saying good evening. Bree's a little more Eastern than I am in Los Angeles here. But hey, thank you so much for joining us. We have a massive show today. We had 14 Breeders' Cup winning urine prep races over the weekend, Mike, along with several unofficial races we'll talk about as well. We're going to go through the divisions in this sequence or from over the weekend. We've used those races to kind of talk about who we like, our picks and everything. But if you're watching us live, in the chat, we want to hear your thoughts on the divisions. If you like a horse, if you didn't like a horse, we'll be giving that out. So, Mike, real quick before we get into it, what was your favorite race? Not necessarily winner or result. What was your favorite race overall from the weekend?
Oh, I'm gonna go with the it's not the Coolmore Turf Mile.
The Coolmore Turf Mile.
I just thought it was a really interesting race. I had a lot of fun covering it with Aaron, too. We talked a lot about Santine and how that was a weaker favorite. We were right on that. I love seeing Annapolis take that step forward. We talked about Annapolis specifically last Thursday and then how, this is a 3-year-old that's kind of coming into its own that was highly touted as a 2-year-old. Fun to see that actually come to fruition because Annapolis looked phenomenal in that. We're obviously going to talk about that race a little bit. And then, it's just fun field. I mean, you had Casa Creed, you had Mason, you had Ivar, you had all of these different horses and you had prices too, with like even set piece that went off at 12-1 that were logical. So it was a fun betting race, fun race to talk about, big field. I thought that was a good one this weekend. What about you? What was your favorite race over the weekend?
Oh man, I was going to say that one. That was a great one. What else did I love? The turf racing at Keeneland in general was, from a betting perspective, just piss poor for me personally. But I had a lot of fun watching it. You know what? The finish of the Breeders' Futurity, that was a lot of fun with Forte and Loggins because it was almost like it was your top pick from the Magic Mike Show versus my top pick, and they separated from the field and they were literally banging with each other this stretch. So that was exciting because that, to me, when you can get 2 quality 2-year-old colts out of a big race like that, to run like that, that's good for the future, like moving forward as 3-year-olds as well. Forget the Breeders' Cup for a second. That's great. And you're looking to head down the Kentucky Derby line too. So Breeders' Futurity, just because you stole the Coolmore Turf Mile from me. You win it because you can say it better.
That was a fun race, the Breeders' Cup Futurity. Breeders' Futurity. Sorry, I say Cup there every time because I'm sticking Breeders' Cup. They absolutely threw it down the lane there. Loggins ran huge. We're going to talk about this. Interesting with Cave Rock and Loggins in the same race because I think Loggins is better than Forte, but I think I want Forte out of that race. We'll get into that a little bit more when we cover it.
Well, listen, like I said, we've got a lot to go on here. The chat's already going. Yeah, Shotty talking about the Forte Loggins duel. Do either of them have a shot versus Cave Rock? We'll find out. Wait, what?
We'll be there. I didn't know the 3 jocks got suspended over the weekend.
Well, I mean, they're pretty much on vacation till Breeders' Cup anyway, right? You might as well just.
That's fair. And then we had Nesco, we had Malathac go, both of them. Yep. So this is going to be a fun. We got to see a lot of the Distaff preps this week after seeing a lot of the Breeders' Cup Classic preps last weekend.
Let's get into it, buddy. Ride is up. What's up, Lon? Good to see you. Hey, Mike, we had 14 Breeders' Cup winning urine prep races plus several more over the weekend here that we're going to talk about. We figured the easiest way to do this is going to go in order of the way the divisions are held on breederscup.com. We're going to start with talking about the Juvenile Turf Sprint Stakes. We had 2 over the weekend. Let's start here with the Futurity and Nazir Rock, and a very impressive horse. Now 2 for 2 since. Oh, great. We're going to have to watch an ad as well. We're going to have to watch this. But Nazir Rock at Belmont at the Big A for Grand Motion, Little Red Feather Racing, Madacat Stables. What did you think about Nazir Rock as we wait for this to go through?
You're killing me. This is Sunday, right? Sunday was Nazir Rock?
Yes.
I was a little bummed about this. I liked a couple horses in here. I know Aaron liked Inflation Nation quite a bit. I like Gaslight Dancer, the 7 horse in this spot. I don't think this was all that impressive of a race when I watched it. It didn't feel like there was any real like superstars here. You're going to see the 4 Vacation Dance hold on a very long time against this field. I thought the 3 absolutely tripped out here. Inflation Nation just wasn't good enough. Like, because that's the perfect spot in a turf sprint right there. And the 7 Gaslight Dancer had every chance as well. I feel like Nazarok, which is Corrigan backwards, so that's how the horse was named, by the way, is just blah. Like this isn't one that I'm probably going to want to play in the Juvenile Turf Sprint.
One horse to watch. The one horse completely blew the break, was like 2 lengths behind out of the gate. Watch the one horse. This is the one I think, at a good 6.5. I don't want it for the Breeders' Cup at all. I think he needs a little bit more distance, but he has got a nice turn of foot. Now they're going to come back to him a little bit here, but he's going to blow him by in the stretch when he tips out. I want to call him Corrigan because you're right. It's named after the original trainer and co-owner, Jim Corrigan. But look at the one, just gobble, 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 go, 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 go one, go one, go one, go one.
Just
He's not going to get the job done. But look at him. Not only that, but watch the gallop out too. He's just going to, if this race was a half furlong gone, he wins by a length or two. He was a very solid horse. The rest of them, him there in the orange. Great for Little Red Feather. They had 2 big turf stakes wins over the sun. Actually, on Sunday, they had a winner at Santa Anita as well. In the Surfer Girl that's going to go to the Juvenile Fillies turf. It wasn't a win in your in, but that's a pretty decent one there. As far as, are we going to be able to watch the Indian Summer? No, they're still going to make us watch it. I'm going to pull these up on YouTube. How about that? As far as the Indian Summer goes, though, we can talk about that one. This was a horse, Private Creed, that you, in the preview for the site, you loved. And you also loved the second place horse that kind of, it was a 3-horse speed duel early that we're going to see. I don't know how Deer District held on, but I think I really like the Deer District going to the Breeders' Cup as well.
Yeah.
Wait, that's the Bourbon, isn't it? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I just completely. This is Private Creed's race.
Where did Private Creed run? Private Creed was
Private Creed's Indian Summer. He's the 11 horse. This one I know is correct.
Indian Summer. Okay, 10-9. I literally have like 15 different past performances open right now, so I can make sure I can talk about this horse. It's freaking wild. I thought this was really interesting because I thought this was really interesting because Wesley scratches out one of his better horses that he has in training right now in Love Reigns. It leaves the 7 horse as the lone ward. No nay never or something like that. Oh yeah, no nay
Hudson. Yep.
And No Name Hudson goes down from 8-1 to 2-1 go off odds and absolutely gets hammered here. The trip was kind of tough for No Name Hudson. You look at it, 21-3, and you're sitting 3 wide. That is not what you want to be doing over this Keeneland turf course sprinting. The 11 Private Creed absolutely trips out right behind. But I thought this is a heck of an effort from Private Creed. Just clearly liked the distance here. This is his 3rd effort at 5.5 furlongs, was able to win on debut, then ran behind No Name Hudson the 2nd time, took a nice step forward at Kentucky Downs. And then this was a very, very good race with the son of Jimmy Creed, one of our favorite turf sires. So I thought it was a heck of a race here. I thought Private Creed ran well. Again, I don't like Love Reigns is in my mind the best turf sprinter. I'm not sure why Love Reigns is out of this race. So we'll see what happens Breeders' Cup wise, whether or not we end up with Love Reigns in that spot or not. But I thought this was a good race from all of the top 4, really. I thought the 8 ran really well coming on late here, the 11, the 7. I thought this was a very good race from all these different competitors.
Yeah, I thought No Name Hudson, the 7, ran better than a 3rd place finish. The 9 was a great finish as well. You see, almost literally ran into the 7, was closing like a freight train and just didn't know where to watch this head on. Just straight trying to go in. And the jockey's like, no, you're going to kill us. A good effort. Good effort from the top 3. I think the top 3 moving forward are nice horses. The 7 had a decent finish there as well. But you're right. Love Reigns is the horse that I thought should have, you would think would love. Yep, here we go from Chris. Wesley Ward said he didn't want Love Reigns to run the Breeders' Cup race yesterday. Well, okay, so Love Reigns is winning the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. Got it.
Well, you got it. The Love Reigns is significantly better than the 7 there, No Name Hudson, and No Name Hudson ran 3rd against that field. So you got to think that Love Reigns is going to be very, very ready to go. I do like that 9 Mustache. We talked about it in the preview. You mentioned it. I said that was a long shot to play. The horse ended up getting bet down from 15-1 to 5-1. Just you got to draw a line through that Kentucky Downs race. And this is something we talk about with Kentucky Downs. A lot of those horses come back and run really well out of it. If you can tell the horse doesn't like the track, and Mustache did not like that 6.5 furlong distance. It was too far for Mustache in that spot. Getting back to the 5.5 here was a big difference. You see a lot of horses run really well out of Kentucky Downs. And specifically, if they don't love the track and then they get to one that they do like, you'll see them run at a big number well. And that was the case with Mustache there.
Let's see. Let's move on, Mike. The next division we can talk about here, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. We got 2 races. We'll start with the Alcibiades Stakes at Keeneland on that would have been Friday. Friday, the big grade 1 race. Oh yes, the ultra saddlecloth race. I thought it was funny. Aaron kept talking about, we bring up whenever we have the all saddlecloth races here. The Alcibiades Stakes, though, a race that for the Juvenile Fillies, Wonder Wheel from the rail just kind of broke strongly, took the lead, and it was over for her. There's a different horse that you love here.
You just keep teeing this up. I still have to pull these freaking PPs up. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
Oh, come on, chop.
I know. Yeah. Well, that's cute. I don't love Chop as much as I think Jared loves Chop out of this, because we watched this replay 3 or 4 times, and the trip really wasn't that bad on Rosario's part with Chop. Horse had to weave in through traffic, but never had to stop. And that was kind of the key there. Wonder Wheel, I thought Gaffney did a wonderful job of controlling the speed, right? Getting to the first turn, holding that rail position, and then being able to kind of just slow it down a little bit. And no one really went after Wonder Wheel in this spot. This division's interesting. I mean, we're going to talk about the California horses in this division in a second here. They're not very good. We'll spoiler alert there. I thought Wonder Wheel, Chop, and Raging Sea all ran pretty good races here. So I think this is going to be a pretty productive race from a Breeders' Cup perspective, because I thought you saw some pretty good horses here.
Yeah, I'd be careful with Chop because everybody out of this race is what I kept hearing. The people, talk to John Lees about it, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that was the most impressive one." And yeah, she visually is impressive. She's red silks. You can see her kind of cutting through right there. I picked her up on the screen right in the middle, just cutting through with the red silks. It was a great finish, but as far as the Breeders' Cup goes, I'm worried that too many people, Mike, are going to see this, and the 12-1 morning line bet down to 6-1. She was 2-1 on debut. Man, I'm afraid we're not going to get any price on her.
I would take Raging Sea over her in the Breeders' Cup for a couple of reasons. First off, you're going to have another
Who's the horse in the middle here you're going to see in the pink?
Yeah, who ends up running 3rd in this spot. Kind of took a bad step in there. Doesn't come down, but almost came down in that spot. There's an objection on the race. And took a bad step. That's why the horse came out and still ran very, very well and close to Chop. But I would take Raging Sea in the Breeders' Cup for a couple of reasons. First off, I mentioned that Rosario did a great job of weaving through traffic. He did that today. The horse will have to do that again in another big field over this track with a short stretch again when they run the Breeders' Cup here in a few weeks, right? Raging Sea has more tactical speed. Raging Sea also was really aggressively priced. We've talked about how Chad Brown does this sometimes. Raging Sea wins a maiden special weight August 7th, 2022. This was her 2nd career start. First time going 2 turns. She has every right to improve massively off of this race and has tactical speed. Now, Chop has a right to improve as well. First time on dirt. I get that. This horse could definitely take a step forward in the Breeders' Cup as well. But Raging Sea's effort, in my mind, was just as impressive and has more tactical speed and is going to be in a better position in that race. The draw matters a lot for both these horses.
Chris says, betting a closer going 2 turns at Keeneland cannot possibly go wrong. Unless it's a McPeak at a price, and then that's actually when you really want to do that. Listen, you kind of stole what I was going to go with. Raging Sea, man, that was it's a daughter of Curlin out of a Stormcat mare. 2 turns. This was her first time. I mean, she debuted at 7 furlongs, and that's usually a key indicator from top trainers that the horse is going to have some talent. So I'm with you. Do you have a division leader for this? I know it's not going to be the horse in the next race.
It might be Raging Sea, to be honest with you. I mean, Wonder Wheel probably will be your favorite after this race, right? I mean, spoiler alert, this Chandelier sucks. Like, Justique had every chance to blow him away, didn't do it. And Tell Me No Lies looked good, but it was the perfect setup. We literally, when we were live talking about this race, it's like, look, the 5 and the 7 are the best possible spot ever, right? The 3 Home Cooking here never had a chance in this race. If you're watching the live feed, we were talking about how the 1 and the 2 were the key to this race. If they go and they hang the 3 here, the 3 has no chance of winning, and that's exactly what happened here with Home Cooking, who, when she didn't get the lead, she's hung 3 wide. Her race is over right here. And the 5, the 6, and the 7 are just sitting in a perfect position now to win this race. It's just who's going to kick the best. And in the 5, I guess, kicked the best. I just was better than what the 6 and 7 were able to do.
Yeah, this is just not a good race. I don't even want to watch the rest of the replay. I mean, the fact that Home Cooking just went 3 wide both times in both turns and never settled. And I don't know if Mike tried to settle her and she just said no, or if it's Mike and he just... Mike Smith is the most infuriating guy in the world for me right now, because he does rides like this from like, what were you thinking? Why did you do this? And he won both the damn turf stakes at Santa Anita yesterday by open length. So go figure. I don't know.
Well, let's also remember there's definitely been a trend over the last 4 years that the West Coast Fillies are worse than the East Coast Fillies. I mean, that is 100% played out. And Aaron specifically, I say, why do you think that is? I think a lot of the West Coast buyers and West Coast trainers are looking to train big time boys, right? They're looking to train like high level 3-year-olds winning a derby versus a lot of the younger girls. I think the buyers are doing that and giving those to trainers. Whereas you see like Pletcher gets horses like Nest, and like you got Malafat, like things like that. The big time fillies are all in these East Coast barns. I think this is another example of that. I don't think any of these are big time fillies. Nick mentioned Chocolate Gelato. Chocolate Gelato definitely going to be up there as well. Horse debuted on opening weekend at Saratoga, gets beat, comes back and wins, and then wins the stakes off of that effort. So Chocolate Gelato will be a pretty short price for Pletcher as well.
Yep, that's a good pull there. Probably be a short price. I'm with you. I kind of like Raging C moving forward for the Breeders' Cup third start. For career, it will come second time going 2 turns. That's a big angle too. So we'll see where they go. Let's talk about the Juvenile Fillies turf here. We've got one race, the Jessamine Stakes from Friday at Keeneland, and we were covering this race live, but we'll watch it back here again. Delight for Jonathan Thomas, Louise Size. It's always a delight when Jonathan Thomas has got a good horse like this. He's a good guy, a good trainer. What did you think about the winner here, and what do you think about Delight? I mean, going to the Breeders' Cup, she looks pretty big threat.
Yeah, I was shocked that first off, great ride by Size here. Gets her out to be forwardly placed, clears the 1 and the 2, and then just sits on that rail and lets the horse outside go as slow as that horse wants, and then takes the lead in this first turn by protecting that rail. Just by that natural ability, like the natural difference in being on the rail versus being in that one path, you get a length lead like that, and then just gets this 7 to back off a little bit, and the race is over. Right.
Yep.
Coming into this race in my mind, and when she gets an easy lead like this, it's just good night. So I thought this was a phenomenal back-to-back rides by Sias, and then Gaffleon protecting the this was just she's very impressive here, I thought. Now, she had everything her own way too, right? So what are we going to see if she takes pace pressure? Like we've never, if you look at her past starts, she's never been in the lead before. This is the first time she took a field wire to wire, but this is a $400,000 daughter of Mendelssohn, $35,000 standing fee, Madly Doro on the bottom end, Jonathan Thomas, Louise Sias. Like, to me, this is one of those all systems go type horses. I think she's got a big shot in the Breeders' Cup, depending on who comes over.
You feel like the way that Jonathan Thomas campaigned her, that he had not just because of the price tag, he really had high hopes for her. Debuts her at Keeneland early in her career back in April. She gets third, very well beaten third to Love Reigns, who we talked about with the Juvenile Turf Sprint, and then goes to Saratoga routing for her next start as the favorite. Shakira was elevated to third in the race we just watched, two races back, the Alcibiades, because that was a horse that Raging Sea cut off. So that was a good horse as well. So was losing to good horses, goes to Delaware Park for a class relief. And you and Aaron talked about this. Horses need confidence boost sometimes. She gets a very easy win against easy competition and showed up here. And I think that combination, like with Sias, who, rides back again, third time in 4 starts, Sias had all sorts of confidence in her as well. And it's just nice to see it pay off for them. Mendelssohn, by the way, if you don't forget, the 2017 Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf winner. So there's plenty of pedigree that says, go to the Breeders' Cup as a 2-year-old with this horse.
I was shocked that Zagira was in the race that we just covered, not in this spot. She won. She looked like the best 2-year-old turf filly in the U.S. when she won that stakes race 2 back. Then she goes over, tries the dirt, tries to point toward that route, right, which is Breeders' Cup, Juvenile Fillies, and then Kentucky Oaks eventually. This really flatters her. That Zagira looked awesome in beating Delight. So I would be interested to see whether or not, I'm sorry, beating a stakes field the next time out after being Delight. Yeah. I would be interested to see if Zagira is back on the turf for the Breeders' Cup if she shows up.
Yeah, especially if they keep trying to go the Oaks route for a little bit. Something you love to talk about is wait for the horse to get back to what they're best at. In this case, that's what it seems to be. We can go back to New York. We can talk about the juvenile division now, Mike. The Breeders' Futurity will be the first of 2, and these are the 2 exciting races as horse racing fans you got to love. First off, to me, that we talked about it earlier before at the start of the show, this was my favorite finish just because you had Forte and you had Loggins. I'm not going to play the clip, but you had those 2 just banging heads out there in the stretch. A very exciting race and always a huge field, too, for this race.
Yeah, it's amazing how big of fields they get for this stuff. And this was a blast, man. Loggins I thought was really interesting, especially how much money came in on this horse. Morning line I think was like 4-1, something around there. Goes off at like, what was it, 6-5? I think it was. So a ton of money comes in for Loggins, and they absolutely fly early. Look at that time. I mean, they're 22, basically 23 flat, and you've got a pressured pace here. Loggins sitting on the rail with 2 horses to the outside, 3-2 off odds there. Really not an easy spot for Loggins to run. Now, Forte sitting on the rail in 7th or 8th right there, I believe, and just the perfect position, right? Forte had the perfect trip here. Loggins had to do all the heavy lifting up front. I think that's important to note as we see them come home here. But this was a lot of fun to see these horses battle. We thought Forte was this good when he lost to Sanford. Was the only horse that closed in that race, came back and got revenge in the hopeful to get the job done. Now stretches out to 2 turns for the first time, and I thought looked really good. I actually thought, you can see Forte just coming on the screen now, I thought Forte was going to win by open lengths right now. I thought there was no chance that Loggins was going to be able to hold him off because he just kept eating up the ground here. But Loggins really dug in and showed a lot of heart in this spot.
Yeah, he did. And you're right. The way that he just ate up those rivals circling them, it's right here. You would think he's going to take off, but it's right. It's like the Loggins saw him and like re-engaged and just kept fighting and kept fighting. And I can't remember. At one point they bump, but I swear at one point right there, it looks like Loggins actually takes the lead. And Forte, I mean, what a battle. Just what a battle. So awesome to watch. So we love those top 2. We would.
When you see the head on, Forte comes in and it gets a little bit tight, and there is definitely a little bit of contact. Forte 100% gets the worst of the little bit of contact. He loses probably a half length. And Loggins, that's when Loggins retakes that lead, and then Forte gets by him. I think if they never touch, Forte wins by almost a half length in this spot. But the fact that they touched is what kind of created that. Now, some people were saying Irad hit him with the crop too, hit Loggins with the crop, which would have been an automatic DQ. I didn't see that, but that was, I know, something that a lot of people were talking about as well. But Irad had to be going to that side. He's trying to get the horse to recorrect outside versus continue to come inside. And if he switches over and hits him with the right, that horse is going right into the rail, and it's a much bigger issue.
I never even thought to watch the head on the DRF replay. I'm gonna watch that now. See if I can see him. I know that's not great for what we're doing. You're right. It's exactly what happened. I mean, I see what they're saying. It looks like also Loggins is. I'm not good enough to know that the strap that runs across his chest, it's like a different color, and it almost looks like Irad's whip. So when you see him moving, it looks like Irad's whipping the front of his chest, even though the whip is behind him. That's interesting. All right. Anyways, we both love those horses. Let's also talk about Mike the over at Santa Anita, the horse that I think everybody on the Racing Dudes team thinks is the biggest single of Future Stars Friday. Cave Rock wins the American Pharoah Stakes at Keeneland or at Churchill. Or God, wow, how many racetracks can I say before I get it right? Cave Rock at Santa Anita Park. Bob Baffert gets the superfecta in this race. I mean, that's just gross.
This was a fun race. I had the superfecta cold in this race. I thought it was actually a pretty easy one. So it's every now and then it's fun when you have these 1 to 5 shots, but you kind of know where everyone else is going. Yeah, look, Cave Rock was phenomenal. I actually thought National Treasure ran pretty well here too. And this is definitely going to be your favorite in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Now, I mentioned this. I kind of teased it at the top of the show. We just saw Loggins. We just saw Forte. Cave Rock is a problem for Loggins. Cave Rock is irrelevant for Forte. That's one of the keys here because you're going to see Cave Rock go to the lead in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. That's where Loggins is going to want to be. They're going to hook up and press each other. That sets up for Forte. I don't like Loggins in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, even though I think Loggins probably might be a better horse long-term than Forte. That specific race is not going to play out as well for him as it will for Forte because of the presence of Cave Rock.
One thing we've kind of forgot to mention when talking about the futurity, that was Loggins' second career start. Yep. Like he lost by a neck in his routing debut and his second career start. I still think, there's comparisons you could draw to him in essential quality a little bit. And I think that, he still has a strong horse moving forward. I think you're right, especially at 3, that's the horse to watch. Cave Rock, and especially Forte being by Violence is, might be a little limited at 3, but Cave Rock right here is just like everybody's trying so hard to keep up with him. You got 3 Bafferts, all it's like synchronized swimming. They're all go, and nobody's really gaining. And Juan Hernandez is just, you there yet? No, you there yet? No. Okay, now I'll hit go. Now here's what's interesting. He's gonna get a little funky right there. He came in a little too hard, but the second Juan Hernandez corrected him without even needing the whip, the horse was professional and took off. And I know that professionalism, that's something that you love in these horses.
Yeah, there's something between the ears right now for Cave Rock, and that's important. It's a very intelligent horse that knows what it's doing, and it sets his mind down to racing, and that's what you mentioned. When he got asked there, he straightened out immediately and immediately put it into another gear. Man, Hijazi's still a maiden now, right? Has run third in this race, and probably going to be going to the Breeders' Cup. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Hijazi as a maiden in the Breeders' Cup.
Man, they're going to get that $3.5 million money back somehow. He's got to finish third in every Grade 1 race from here to Timbuktu. You know what he is? He's this year's Command Performance, just with Baffert instead of Pletcher.
Yeah, I mean, I would say he's worse than Command Performance. Well, I can't say that. That's pretty insulting because Command Performance is pretty bad.
We'll wait and see. Does he need to go to
bad,
Monmouth to break his maiden?
Yeah. I see. Like the thing that I will say about Hijazi is lost to a good horse every time. Like Hijazi has faced very, very good horses here in very tough spots, and just run behind them.
Nick says, I'll be cautiously optimistic with Cave Rock. He has to ship to Keeneland, and Juan Hernandez will be on a heavy favorite in a big spot. But he should freak out will he freak out if the trip doesn't go perfect? Of the three horses that we've seen, Forte, Loggins, Cave Rock, and let's throw Blazing Sevens in. If say all those four, none of them get their ideal trip, who's the most likely winner of those four, Mike?
I don't see how Cave Rock doesn't get his trip. That's the problem. Cave Rock is just faster than everyone else, right? Like Cave Rock has to miss the break to not get his trip. And Forte, I think he gets stopped if he doesn't get his trip, right? So Forte's screwed if he doesn't get his trip because that means he's in traffic trouble and doesn't get his run in. So I would say Forte would be the worst if there's something, that type of anti-trip for him. I think Cave Rock makes his own trip because he's just faster than everybody else. So even if he breaks out of the 10 post, they're 100% sending. If he breaks out of 2 posts, they're 100% sending. If he breaks out of the 4 posts, he's the fastest horse. So I don't see how Cave Rock ends up in a bad spot. Loggins, to me, is kind of a wild card on how fast Loggins can go early, and if they want to go with Cave Rock early, because that's going to be a big key to that race.
We'll see how things shape up, but it's definitely going to. This division got a lot more exciting with what we saw in Keeneland because we knew Cave Rock was going to be a beast.
You have 2 horses out east now that are interesting, whereas before it was like, well, that's going to be Cave Rock and National Treasure.
I'd say 2.5. I think Blazing Sevens is interesting. He's a good magic baby.
Yeah, Blazing Sevens got the perfect setup, though. I mean, that was the thing about that race, is that it was literally just the dream trip because everyone went too fast up front and he was able to pick up the pieces.
Let's talk about the Juvenile Turf 1 race for this, the Castle and Key Bourbon Stakes, Sunday at Keeneland. This race, another wide open field, big field of 12 for Keeneland. This is the race where Deer District, the Florida horse, really surprised me in a good way. But the winner was aptly named the 12 horse, and the winner is for Flavien Prat. What do you think about this? And do you like anybody for the Breeders' Cup?
I mean, these races are tough because a lot of it is who comes over, right? Because that's going to determine whether or not you want to take these horses. I thought And the Winner was impressive. And I thought it was interesting in the morning lines for this. We talked about it on Dudes Who Bet Daily going into this race. But you go back to the With Anticipation, and Bapio wins that race at a monster price. And we all kind of knew that was a little fraudulent. When one at 23-1 was a gettable horse that day, but was kind of fraudulent at 23-1. And you had the 12 horse And the Winner go off as your favorite at $2.25, right? You knew that 10-1 was not going to be there. And I think that this kind of redeemed both the 10 and the 11 in that spot, who ran well as well. Our Dream Dry, who I think finished in the top 4, who was 3-1 coming out of that race. So that was just a kind of a funky race, the With Anticipation. I thought the And the Winner ran really well here. And I thought And the Winner didn't get a great trip here either. Hung wide the entire time. I would be a little bit interested in this one, depending on whether or not we can draw inside. I think the draw is important for And the Winner because against the Europeans that would come over for this race, you can't really give up ground on both turns.
The 4 horse right there in the middle of the front with the blinkers on, he's going to sustain. Everybody else is going to fall apart while the 12 just shoots right past.
You don't have
everybody else dropped anchor. We're better now? Am I better now?
There you go.
There we go. 4 horse. We'll back it up here because I'll make my point again. The 4 horse is the one that to me, I mentioned before, Deer District. Watch him. He's got the blinkers on. Everybody else drops anchor. when you see the 12 just swoop past. And yes, he's going to get beat by almost 3 lengths. But the fact that he was part in the middle of a 3-wide pace duel through both turns, and then every other pace horse that was anywhere close to him is just now finishing the race. I thought that was a sneaky impressive finish for him. Pace-wise, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf is going to have far fewer sprinters than this race did because you have the Juvenile Turf Sprint. So I think he could be a little sneaky if you can catch him at a price, if the pace works out. Not a horse I think is a serious threat to win, but you saw how he kept running here, even though he got passed by the way. He kept on trying, and I think for the Breeders' Cup, that is something that's going to be important.
Yep, and ran well at Kentucky Downs as well in that $500,000 juvenile race. Ends up running second to Reckoning Force, who's a 3-horse in here, and really good, the 10-horse. So I liked in this spot. Ended up running fourth, I believe it was third. So has good company as well from what we faced. I agree with you. Needs a lot less pace because probably needs to take that field gate to wire. But it is likely that you're going to see less pace in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies than you did in this spot.
Nick says, because I know this is going to be the answer for all of us, the Appleby horse is still our pick in the division, Mysterious Night, correct?
Yeah, and she looked phenomenal at Woodbine. I mean, that's the thing. It's like a lot of these races, these turf races specifically, it's who comes over from Europe and ends up in this spot. We've seen Mysterious Night run once already here in North America, so she's the easy one to pick out, but there's going to be some other good ones shipping in.
All right, Mike, we had one race for the TCA Stakes, which is part of the Breeders' Cup, or part of the Pick 5 that we did over racingdudes.com on the Magic Mike show. Here is, why is it so terrible footage? I apologize for that. Oh, it's from the Breeders' Cup. You'd think the Breeders' Cup would have better footage of this, but this is the TCA Stakes. You see there, even through the blur, Slam goes out to the lead, and Slam never looks back. And tell me, Mike Somich, is Slam going to win the Breeders' Cup for the Mare Sprint?
She might. I mean, right? This was a pretty good effort here from Slammed, and she's been very good before. We talked about this horse with Todd Fisher quite a bit. When he has a good horse, when they go to Del Mar, generally they're very good. Slammed was very good in this spot. Happy Soul kind of ran after her. Palm Cottage just dropped the anchor here. This field wasn't great, so it's a little hard for me to say, yeah, I love Slammed here, but she's got to be one of these shorter prices now.
Yeah, we're probably not going to get a great price on her. It helps the CC has been informed, the defending champion. I don't love her for the race, and she's going to take a lot of money. I don't really. Baffert doesn't have a Gamine this year to try and beat. She looked great. Todd Fincher, the trainer, Southwest Circuit trainer, now has 2 Breeders' Cup winning urine horses. He's got Cody's Wish, and both. Not only that, Mike, he has 2 legit Breeders' Cup horses. So that's pretty cool to see. Yeah, there he is celebrating.
Yeah, and she was phenomenal. I mean, that was a very good race. She dusted that field. Now, again, there wasn't that much in the field, but you mentioned it. This division doesn't have a dominant horse. There's not that much in this division either. And
usually, when it does have one, it's usually like a filly that loses.
This has been probably.
You remember Unique Bella? Unique Bella was dominant as hell.
Yeah. I mean, Bar Gold won it like 70-1 that year, right? It's something like that, 66-1. I mean, this race has consistently produced wild upsets. It was 3 years ago. Dan had one in this race that was 24-1 too. I don't remember the horse's name, but he texted me. He's like,
Shamrock Rose.
Yeah, and then he didn't bet it because he texted me, all of us separately about how much he liked the horse, and then he forgot to bet it. This specific event, for some reason, creates chaos. Yeah, that's a good call here too. Goodnight Olive has been very, very.
That's
good
the one
around in New York as well.
And that's the last I saw. That was Aaron's top pick still for the division. And then you have obligatory. I'm sorry, that's not the one I meant to close on. Obligatory is the Curlin filly for Bill Mott. That is a gorgeous gray closer. She's a tough one as well.
Maybe we get Bell's the One, who we have. She did not run this weekend, but she's good too. I like Bell's the One. Don't make that face.
No. I'm still mad because she chicken shitted out of it last year and it came down to a 5-horse field, and she could have won it last year. And this year, I think she's got no shot, even though she likes Keeneland.
Yeah, we'll see.
That's why I made that face.
She was there at Keeneland last time, but not in that race. She was in, I think, the undercard on Friday, I believe it was.
No, she and Club Car skipped and went to some stupid stakes race. Anyway, let's talk about the Woodford
not last
Stakes.
year. I'm talking about last time it was at Keeneland.
Oh, yes.
Because I played the BCBC at Gulfstream, and then then Bell's the One came back and won at Santa Anita after that Keeneland race.
It's a horse we just can't get right. Let's talk about the Woodford Stakes. This is actually what kicked off the All Stakes Pick 5. You very wisely singled Golden Pal because, hey, look, there's the break and it's over. Number 4, Golden Pal is going to win. Does it? Let me ask you this: is this your top pick for the division? Legitimately, Golden Pal, and if so, is he a single?
Yes, and you almost have to say yes to the second question if he's your top pick, because he's going to be such a short price that if you spread around, you're just wasting bullets. You either have to beat him or you single him, and I'm going to probably end up singling him because look, he loves this turf course. There's no one who is fast as he is when he breaks. We saw this happen last year where he just outbroke the field and was gone. I don't see why you're not going to. And you know what? The best price you're going to get on Golden Pal all year is going to be at the Breeders' Cup, because it's going to be the deepest field he face and the biggest field he faces. And so you're going to get 3 to 5, 4 to 5. Now, am I going to bet the horse to win? Probably not. I mean, maybe I'll shove in the BCBC and try and just get a free double up or something like somewhere around that. If the price is okay, maybe I'll play some pretty big doubles around him. But yeah, I mean, I don't. Who are you beating him with?
The only way I mean, this is what I said when I used the 7, who was the second best horse in that race. The only way you beat him is if he beats himself. So, like I was trying to see if I could do that. I might go too deep and see if there's one horse that if Golden Pal for whatever reason beats himself, but in America, he's undefeated in American turf. What, 8 for 8 now, right? So yeah. I mean, just super impressive. Coolmore paid a shit ton of money for this horse after he'd already won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint and maybe even the Turf Sprint, and they just kept him in training, kept him going. So if they're going to keep this horse in training, keep him running, we might as well keep rooting for him. A race that I know was not your favorite from Keeneland. This was on Friday. Not a good day at Keeneland for us. The Phoenix Stakes. This was the only Breeders' Cup winner in for the sprint. Maniwa with the big upset. Mike, what the hell happened in this race?
I mean, the race just collapsed. I mean, that's what happened. We kind of talked about how that was possible when we were doing the live show here, that like this race could just absolutely fall apart. And that's what happened here. I mean, it just, you had the 2-horse go to the lead and like, you just saw the pace falling apart as you watched it, and speed had been good so far. So you weren't like, obviously you knew Special Reserve was going to go there. Sibelius, I was expecting to be a little bit further off of it. And Sibelius is, in my mind, sitting a little bit too close in this spot, just right outside the 4 there. The 3-horse absolutely takes it to him, but we knew the 3 was going to go, right? I mean, we knew the Top Gunner was going to be out there with Special Reserve. I thought Top Gunner ran pretty well in this spot, but it really set up, honestly, for Necker Island. And Necker Island just throws in the absolute towel here, just doesn't run a lick. And right now, Maniwa's in last. And that's all you need to know. When they go 22, 45, 44, and 3, and Maniwa's, and the winner is in last, it's what happened. The race fell apart.
Let's look ahead now. Jackie's Warrior, and I think is at least my top pick. Any horses that you think that you might want to use or that intrigue you alongside Jackie's Warrior for the sprint?
I mean, honestly, I'm probably going to be looking at closers in the sprint. We'll see who ends up showing up to push the pace with Jackie's Warrior, but I mean, I could see the same thing happening in the sprint that we've seen multiple years, right? Where there's 3 or 4 horses that go, and all of a sudden it's a mess, and Aloha West wins by a nose, right? Like in Aloha West, sorry, not very good for like a Breeders' Cup champion, right? I mean, that horse hasn't done much since winning the Breeders' Cup. So I wouldn't be shocked if you have a similar setup here where Jackie's Warrior goes out here with 3 other horses. They go 21 and change, 44, slow 44s, and all of a sudden you have a Maniwa-esque horse just closing on that day. And that's probably how I'm going to attack this race, is trying to figure out who wins the collapse, because I think the collapse is likely in the sprint again.
Well, shit. Remember 2 years ago it was Whitmore. The old man Whitmore finally got it done. Boy, this finish, it just hurts to watch. I will say for me, a horse that I am very intrigued by, and it's credit to Aaron because I'd forgotten that they were going to do this with her, Kamari. They're going to do Kamari in the Breeders' Cup Sprint against the males because she's better at 6 than she is at 7, and she loves Keeneland, Mike. She loves Keeneland, and I think she looks better this year than she ever has. And that's saying something because she's been a very good-looking horse since she was a 2-year-old. So Kamari is an interesting one. She comes from off of the pace. Again, she loves Keeneland. You could look for that. Other than that, I don't know. I know Willie Boy is going to be going from Florida. And isn't Willie Boy like a dead sprinter? Or like a
Willie
dead
Boy,
speed horse?
Yeah, he is. What's the American in Santa Anita?
American Theorem in California.
American Theorem, I think, is awfully interesting in this spot based on the way the pace is going to set up. American Theorem won really impressively. I think it was 2 back.
Yep. Bing Crosby.
Yeah.
Boy, what about Jack Christopher? Because I feel like the sprint's too short, and I would rather see him in the dirt mile. I know it's 2 turns, but I'd rather see him go there.
I would put him in the dirt mile if I'm Chad Brown. We'll see where he ends up, if it's sprint or mile. If it's sprint, I think that's really bad for both Jack Christopher and for Jackie's Warrior. Like that's
Yes.
another horse that's going to be pressing or close to it. They're like, I would much rather be in the dirt mile and try and take that field wire to wire or gate to wire.
Yeah, I think, I think his competition, despite everybody supposedly being scared of Flightline, I still think his competition will ultimately be better in the dirt mile than the sprint. And yeah, him carrying his speed 2 turns, I think will be pretty good as well. Mike, we had 2 races for one officially for the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf, and
Look
that
at
was
that
at Santa
try,
Anita
by the way.
on what's that?
Look at the try. It was Manny Watt over long range Toddy. You did like that. We didn't even bring up long range Toddy running second in that race. Anyway, go ahead.
There's a reason for that. Rodeo Drive Stakes. Saturday at Santa Anita Park, a Grade 1 race for the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Turf. Won for the 2nd straight year by going to Vegas. Congrats to her. The winner's circle. I remember last year I was at Santa Anita, and the winner's circle was overflowing to the point that they couldn't even bring the horse in for the photo because it just was unsafe. Yeah, but my racehorse, Medallion Racing Abundanza. But the point is, this is a horse that goes to the front, leads early, tries to take them all the way. It didn't work last time at the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf, and it was in California, and now she's got to go to Keeneland to try and do it. Do you like her or anybody from this field remotely?
No, no one at all. I mean, all you need to know is Fluffy Socks was in this race and was the favorite, right? I mean, because Fluffy Socks is not going to be the favorite at all in any of the big races, perhaps for this in Kentucky and New York, anywhere else. It's just in California that she could be the favorite. And going to Vegas just absolutely gets everything her own way here. It could not have been easier for her to go gate to wire here based on the fractions they went. 48 to the half mile is really slow in California. 48 and 3 for this type of race.
Yeah.
So she was able to get everything her own way, get a dream setup. And again, Fluffy Socks just wildly cheap.
I'm so sorry. You know, because this race is boring and she's going to win gate to wire. Let's go back to the chat. Robert Ragland, I did this earlier when we were prepping for it. I forgot about the Vosburg, and then I did it again. Elite Power won the Vosburg Stakes. Let's talk about the sprint for a second. Mike, do you have any interest in him in the sprint? Because I thought that was a very impressive race.
It was. I haven't seen what the number came back with yet. It's an interesting horse for Mott, right? I mean, this is a 4-year-old that's now going to get the Breeders' Cup third off the layoff. Has been phenomenal. I mean, it has kind of had a 97 buyer first off the layoff. Comes back, runs really well again. Didn't beat anything, but you can't really take anything away either. Elite Power also be coming from off the pace, which I think makes Elite Power interesting in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. I mean, that's not a horse that's going to be on the lead, especially with the fractions are going. So, yeah, I'm a little interested in Elite Power in the sprint. You might get a price too because of the lack of competition he's faced.
Yeah, that was a pretty shitty field that he faced, but he got a 101 buyer for it. He got a 101, very solid. His buyers and he's just been like every race getting better and better for Belmont. Remember, that was 7 furlongs. He's going to cut back to 6 furlongs for the sprint. As a closer, that's just going to make him even better, right?
We'll see. We'll see.
It doesn't always work that way, but
yeah, we'll see where he is. He has success at 6 furlongs, so that's not a huge issue in my mind, the cutback. Be interesting to see what Belmont does. Like, does Baby Yoda go to the sprint? Like, I'm going to be interested to see if you see any other Motts there.
Let's also, while this still goes on, and we'll talk about this. And Nick's brought this up in the chat a couple of times. I know the answer to this, but I'm curious. It's okay if you don't. I know you're not a big history guy. Golden Pal won the Breeders' Cup race at 2. He won it at 3. He could win it again at age 4. Has anyone ever done that before? There are 2 horses that have ever won 3 Breeders' Cup races. Goldakova won the mile 3 straight years, but never won at age 2.
Right. Sorry, go ahead.
The Holder won the Juvenile Fillies. She won the Distaff at 3, and she won the Distaff at 6. I'm doing fingers, and I've got Nick's message blocking me. So nobody has ever won 2, 3, 4. Golden Pal would be the first to do it.
Well, that's wildly difficult to do because you really would have to win. I mean, I guess there's different divisions, so you don't have to. But like, I would have thought it would have been like a male going Juvenile Mile Classic or something like that. You know what I mean? Because that's
breeding kind of screws that up, doesn't it?
It does, and that's the thing. It almost has to be a filly, or it has to be like a cigar, where you have a horse that's gelded that does it, right?
Yeah,
because you're not going to see many colts be in the Breeders' Cup 3 years in a row if they don't win it too, right? And then it makes it difficult.
The crazy thing is that Truth Exposed brings up Zenyatta. The crazy thing about Zenyatta, she would have done it at 4, 5, and 6. She didn't even I don't think she even debuted until she was 4, or like late in her 3-year-old season. Anyways, we still got some races to talk about here. The First Lady Stakes, Regal Glory was in this, In Italian was in this. The reason we want to talk about it, instead of Regal Glory winning and going off to the mile, it might be In Italian winning this and going off to the Filly and Mare Turf. We talked about going to Vegas with speed. This horse is legit serious grade 1 front end speed. She's shown that 2 straight races now, Mike.
And this was a really important race for her because this validates that Diana win, right? Because she had lost at a mile being on the lead to horses like Speak of the Devil, who looked phenomenal in that race, but Speak of the Devil has been great since, right? So she was clearly a cut below the Chad Brown horses, the Chad Brown fillies going into Saratoga. Coming out of this race, she is the best Chad Brown filly right now in that barn. I think she's the best Chad Brown filly right now in that barn. He's got a lot of them. So that I like, but now with having that success at a mile too is key. Now, didn't face any pace pressure. Technical analysis would be the one that could push. But the counterpoint to that is I don't think anyone can pressure her. Like, she goes so freaking fast. She went 45 and change, going 1.1 miles at Saratoga in the Diana. That should be like a suicidal pace. And she kept that speed going the entire time. The cruising speed is phenomenal. I mean, this is kind of wild. But right now, she reminds me a lot of Nick's Go, where he just looks so comfortable going fast. She looks so comfortable going fast. And right here at the top of the lane, you're like, they're not getting her. She's just gone again. And so she looks really good. And the one nice part about her is that you don't have to worry about the Euros pressing her from a pace perspective. There are no fillies fast enough in Europe early to press her from a pace perspective. So it really just comes down to whether or not she gets loose and can carry the speed. And I don't know of another filly that can go with her. So wherever she ends up, she's a threat.
I was trying to remember, I still can't. When Sister Charlie won the Breeders' Cup for the Mare Turf in 2018, a Raving Beauty, that was the horse. He had a Raving Beauty who was another one like this, where she was all speed, and it was rare for Chad Brown, especially at that time, because he was all closers for his Turf Stars, and was a very solid third behind Sister Charlie and Wild Illusion in that Filly Mare Turf. So he's done it before. I think she's a serious threat. The more I think about her going there, again, we don't know about it from the Europeans, but at least as far as the Americans, for the Filly and Mare Turf, this might be my top pick from the U.S.
Yeah, again, we'll see what race she ends up in, because she could go to the Filly and Mare Turf. She could end up in the Turf Mile. We don't really know which one it is. If I'm the connections, I'm probably thinking Filly and Mare Turf, because that Turf Mile, it does have quite a bit of other speed in it, and they will go fast in that one early, and whereas they could slow it down. And we'll talk about, I think we haven't talked about the mile yet, so we'll get to that division.
We're coming up on that. That's next. Truth Exposed says, I wish they brought Winks or Black Caviar over. Europe really sends their very best. Both of those horses were in Australia. Sorry.
and they rarely send their horses, period, from Australia.
Yes. Yeah. That usually you go to Australia and then you don't ever leave there. But yeah, In Italian, a nice runner there. Let's get off of there. We don't need to see Chad Brown any more than we have to. Let's talk about the Coolmore Turf Mile, Mike. This was Annapolis, and I saw that being brought up in the chat earlier. Not a horse that we use for the Magic Mike show, but one that you brought up in a big reason.
Annapolis.
You did? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I know you mentioned him because it was Irad on a 3-year-old when he could have ridden half of the horses in this race easily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we really liked Annapolis at 2, and we didn't get to see Annapolis in the Breeders' Cup. We saw Annapolis wins debut, wins the Grade 2 Pilgrim. We don't see her again. We don't see him again at 2. Debuts in the Penn Mile, loses to Wow What a Summer to Monster Price. And everyone kind of forgets about Annapolis a little bit after that race. I mean, to be honest, that I think a lot of people kind of said, oh, well, maybe not as good as we thought. Comes back, wins at Belmont, runs second to Nation's Pride in the Saratoga Derby, which I thought was actually a really good second. Then takes the Saranac Field Gate to Wire. This was a really impressive race. And I love the fact that we have tactical speed, that we can sit close, we can make our own trip. He beat this field by open legs. And this is not a bad field. This is a good field. And he beat them by open legs. I thought this was really impressive from Annapolis, who has every bit to the right to continue to improve into the Breeders' Cup too. Still very young in the career.
Yeah, I'm honestly mad at myself for having overlooked him, because when you look, back on, you're like, oh yeah, there's a lot of reasons this kind of made sense. I mean, I would say that this was the toughest turf race in America since the Maker's Mark Mile was held at Keeneland, and it was, a lot of the same setup, similar horses involved. What do you make of this 6 Ivar? I mean, this horse loves Keeneland, and he's not a winner, but we saw him finish second to Modern Games, and now he finishes second here. And you got Order of Australia, Set Piece, Casa Creed are all right there in that photo finish for second. Ivar, for the Breeders' Cup, is he the horse you want to use underneath?
Paulo Lobo has a little Kenny McPeak in him. We'll just put it that way. You got to get the right price on Paulo Lobo horses. Like I don't want to be playing him at too short of a price here. I think 9-2 was the off odds on Ivar, which I thought was too short. Won the Maker's Mark
5-1.
5-1. Okay, won the Maker's Mark. Yep. 14-1, I think it was 16-1, something like that. That's the right price, and you're going to get that. Here's the problem: Ivar's been clearly beaten, not beaten a little bit, but clearly beaten by 2 horses in this division now. And you're going to have horses that are shipping over that fit in between those horses and Ivar. It would take a lot for Ivar to be able to win. Although underneath, I think Ivar is probably a good horse to use.
I mean, shit, we forget this. Well, I know you don't because it cost you a dinner. Smooth Like Straight got second in the Breeders' Cup Mile last year, but Ivar was third, and that was at Del Mar. He's back at Keeneland. I mean, you know what? If we get a price, you said the right thing, and I think we will. You get a price on this horse. He's got to be a must-use underneath because you've got your Modern Games, as your Annapolis, as you've Order of Australia might come back. I'm not sure. We'll see what they do with Set Piece. I thought this was he was a nose and a neck away from second, trying to close from dead last. So, and any other horses that I haven't mentioned? Do you want Casa Creed for the Turf Mile still?
I'm interested to see where Casa Creed goes. Generally, no, I don't. Look, I don't think Casa Creed can. Casa Creed's not
better at one turn.
No, Casa Creed's not a superstar. Annapolis could be a superstar. This was the one horse in this field that could have been a superstar, right? Modern Games is a superstar. It's tough for Casa Creed to beat those type of horses. You know what I mean? So again, Casa Creed's one where I think likely to hit the board, unlikely to win. I guess that super's getting filled pretty fast though. Because if you got Annapolis and you've got Modern Games and all of a sudden you got Casa Creed and you got Ivar, there's your super, game over. And we haven't even talked about anyone else shipping in yet.
Smooth Like Straight scratched out of that. I didn't actually hear why. If somebody in the chat knows why, let us know. There's a lot going on. It was hard to miss or hard to hear about that one. We'll go real quick here, Mike. We got 2 more divisions and 3 races. We can do it. We're going to start with Sunday, 2 races for the Distaff. We'll talk about the Beldame Stakes. The important one here is going to be Ness. She's taking on the elder horses for the first time, and she's not facing a lot, but she looked visually just as strong as she ever has. She's from the rail, if you're not sure what we're talking about here.
Yep. She did everything right. Broke well, got to the rail, was able to then rate off of horses, got outside on the loose, and looked exactly like a 1-9 should look. That's pretty much all the takeaways from this, right? It was a paid workout, and she was very professional in it, and that's what you want.
Yeah. Let's just scoop ahead a little bit. Let's at least go to the turn. There we go. This will make it a little more interesting. So this was nice. Irad, I think, was I'm sorry, not I forget who was riding, but the jockey was playing with her pretty well. It was Irad. I forgot this was Sunday. Irad played with it pretty well. But 3 wide. He knew he had the best horse in the race, and so it's almost like he was educating her, trying to see, can I do this with her? Can I do that with her? Other than going wide off the turn, which it doesn't really bother me too much. A very nice effort. She's going to draw away impressively, and Irad knows just keep her motoring, bring her on home. Super impressive. Is she your pick to win this division?
Yes.
You're really not giving me anything to work with you.
It's not interesting. Sorry, but she's going to win the division. We can talk about Malafat now. First off, Latruska. I've officially quit Latruska. She needs to retire. This was the setup she needed. She, again, didn't get the job done. Look, who are you going to pick, Malafat? Are you going to pick the Japanese invader? Who are we picking here? That's where you got to go.
Hey, don't joke about that. Don't joke about the Japanese.
I know. Well, I picked Malafat last year, and that was wildly frustrating because Malafat should have won last year. Should have won that race last year.
Yeah.
And just maybe if she was in blinkers, she would have won that race last year, to be honest with you, because the improvement we've seen with Malafat in the last 3 races with blinkers has been very noticeable.
So let's talk about this. I'm with you. Latruska blew the start, and it was like, well, if this was a now or never race, I think we just saw the never.
Yep.
She went up to get the lead, but she never at any point, Mike, I thought looked like she should have the lead. The old Latruska would have taken the lead on her own power and said, fuck you, I'm not letting you run inside of me. I'm going to lead. She just, to me, I think, I'm with you. She needs to retire, and they will. there's nothing left in the tank at this point.
Yeah, I think that this was it. And like, yeah, you mentioned, I mean, they went 24-2. Latruska goes 23-2 in her sleep, like when she was on her game. So a little disappointing that I don't know if they held her back. It looked like he was willing to let her just go, and she just didn't want to go. And that's pretty much when it's time to head over to the breeding shed, right?
Well, right there, Gaffleone looked to his right and saw that the 5 was just Princess of Cairo or whatever was creeping up, and he looked over and he barked at her, and that's why she started to move a little bit. But again, like, I'm not going to blame Gaffleone for riding her differently than Jose Ortiz might have. She just doesn't have anything left. Let's talk about the winner, Malathat. I mean, she looked good. She looked impressive. As far as the distaff, are you going to go with a Pletcher Curlin AP Indy Mare Exacting and go Nest over Malathat Cold?
We'll see who's there, but probably. I mean, like, look, the thing with this race, if Latruska's cooked, this field is shit. We got to remember that, right? Like, if she does, if she's bad, like, she was a second choice in this spot. The 4-horse was your third choice in this spot. Like, this is not a good field, right? We'll have to see who actually ends up in there. Clairiere, obviously, will be coming back. Had a bad trip last time when Malathat was able to beat her. Like, there's a couple other horses that I think are a little bit interesting. I'll tell you this. I don't trust Malathat nearly as much as I trust Nest. Nest will run her race. Malathat, I don't trust her that much. And I'm not sure how good she is yet. Because, like, this was dominant, but this was dominant over nothing. And when we've seen her face something, it's winning by a nose and a neck or losing by a nose and a neck. And that's not the way I think Nest is going to win that race. I like Nest on top much more than I like her in second.
Nick brings up a call. He says he wants you a part of Malathat. Don't sleep on search results. With no Latruska to have to do the dirty work on, she might finally get her front running trip. That is an excellent point, and that is my second pick underneath Nest. If she gets a pace set up, that could be an upset waiting to happen right there.
Well, that's why I like Nest too, because she can sit right off that. Nest has tactical speed. Like, you don't need to be coming from the back, and Malathat in a bigger field is generally going to be further back. Now, this race also collapsed last year, so we have to see who signs up for this race, because this was like the ultimate pace collapse last year.
Well, we won't have what's her name? Not Somich. Shoot, the really long. She Dares the Devil. She's not in there. Latruska won't be in there. There was the 2 big pace issues. There was a sprinter that was in there that shouldn't have been. Yeah, we'll be fine. I do want to talk about one last race here real quick. And we can talk about another filly, even though it was an open race, the Joe Hirsch Turf Classic. Not an official winner for the Breeders' Cup Turf, but we're going to talk about it because this was a 1.5 mile race. And the winner, the number 2 Warlike Goddess, is going to the Breeders' Cup Turf because that is her preferred distance. I loved this race from her, not just because she beat the boys and she had to beat a hard horse like Gufo. She had to chase down a loose leader like Bye Bye Melvin. She was closer to the pace than usual, and she looked just as good.
I thought that was key. The fact that going 1.5 miles, we can sit this close. And you mentioned Bye Bye Melvin was clearly going to be a loose leader there. Interesting that Lizcano got this ride. Rosario was at Keeneland, so that's why Lizcano was up. I thought Lizcano did a phenomenal job getting her closer to the pace. We blasted Rosario for how awful his ride was last time on Warlike Goddess, cost her the race. I loved what Lizcano did here. I'll be interested to see if he gets to keep the mount or not. That's going to be. I bet it goes back to Rosario, but I wouldn't mind Lizcano riding this horse back. He's a sneaky good turf rider up there in New York. She looked dynamic, though. I mean, that's the thing. And then she's also close to the pace. And this is a 49 second half mile. That is blazing in New York for 1.5 miles. Like, so she's close to a fast New York pace there. I thought she's dangerous in the turf if she runs back to this race.
She was, to me, this looked like if you wanted to see a horse put in a final beautiful effort for the Breeders' Cup for whatever division, this is the kind of effort you want to see. She did it with ease. She did everything the rider asked. I mean, if you bet her, never at any point were you questioning, is she going to lose? Is she, unlike last time, you mentioned it, that inside trip and against a smaller field of fillies and mares, she got screwed over by that one. But in this field against the boys, Gufo is a multiple grade 1 winner. Like, this is not a cheap field that she beat.
No, this field is not bad at all. I mean, Soldiers Rising is the 6th horse, so I thought had a shot here. And I thought it's a pretty good horse. And Hamo won the Monmouth race, the United Nations. Like, this is a good field that was in this race. This wasn't beating slouches, and she made them look pedestrian.
God, I just love watching her run. I'm so happy we're gonna be at the Breeders' Cup to see her in person. One last. Actually, I've never seen her in person. Oh, that's gonna be so great. Yeah, right here you see the Six Soldier Rising. He gets an opening, and then he just hit a wall. He said, "Nope, never mind. That was my little burst." But look
And
at
look
her
at
just
her.
extend, and so much more is left in the tank there, and she's just as happy. And let's go, World Like Guys. Okay, we don't know who's coming over from Europe. This is the best American choice for the turf, right?
Probably, yeah. I mean, there's, this division's been a mess all year. Like you've got Hamo who has won, you've got Triphuven who has won. I mean, it's just kind of crazy. But like, yeah, the Euros, you got to respect any European horse that comes over, you have to respect. But Warlike Goddess is sometimes coming into these races, you're like, that's a good horse. And that it's actually a standout in a division. Warlike Goddess, if she goes to the turf, is a standout over these boys. She would have been able to win a lot of these races all year long if she was in them. I mean, outside of Triphuven's wire-to-wire effort, I don't remember, it was the Sword Dancer. I don't remember where that was. Outside of Triphuven's wire-to-wire effort at 17-1, she's would have won almost every single one of these longer turf races.
Manhattan Stakes?
Is it Manhattan?
I think it was United Nations was what Adamo won.
Yeah,
Sword
United
Dancer
Nations was Adamo. Manhattan at Belmont was Triphuven.
Bye Melvin could go to the turf off of that. Tried to go and gate to wire, was no match for Warlike Goddess, but I don't hate that decision. If you've got a pace horse, I mean, you're going to run into Channel Maker probably, but
Yeah, but Bye Melvin's faster than Channel Maker. I mean, Triphuven would be the one I'd be worried about. And one thing we didn't mention, Pratt Brown, who was that? The horse that went? I can't remember now. Anyway, Brown is essentially having one of Brown's horses is going every single time now. One of his turf horses in every race is going every single time. So if he has multiple in there and Triphuven's not there, you got to figure out which one's sending, because there will be a Brown horse that sends.
Nick Feldman bringing up also domestic spending has 6 works in now. Just saying, if he brings him back at the Breeders' Cup turf,
it's a spot. Use him. That's a spot, man. That's you're aiming high there with the return effort for domestic spending.
It'd be interesting if he doesn't. Yeah, Mark Heff brings up he doesn't really have a solid meal on turf. Yes, he does. His name is Domestic Spending. He's coming back. That was good. All right, this was a long show. We made it. We did 14, 15, $1.5 million freaking races here. All the divisions covered. Thank you so much for joining us, Mike. I know we're at the time limit here. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
I think the Chiefs score a lot of points tonight, but I don't know if they cover, so I took the team total over.
I just hope MVS. I've got like a 4-point fantasy lead, and I have MVS versus the Vegas kicker. If I somehow lose this one, Jared, I am so sorry what happened to your Chiefs for that to be the case.
You should be okay there. How about our Giants, man? 4-1. They knock off the Packers. Unbelievable. 6.5. Oh. Let's go.
Oh, so awesome. So absolutely awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. The Dudes Who Bet Dudes Who Bet Sports, the weekly show, will be live in 1 hour here at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 Eastern. So make sure you tune in for that. Papa Dude and Aaron going over the crazy weekend of the NFL and college football. Mike and I will be back on Thursday. We're going to preview. Keeneland's back this weekend. We'll be at Keeneland. We'll do another Keeneland sequence. So we'll cover that on Thursday's show. And don't forget, every Wednesday through Sunday at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, Dudes Who Bet Daily, our best bets for horse racing, NFL, Major League Baseball, CFL. We didn't have the best weekend last weekend, but overall, we're still having a really solid time.
Yeah, up like $1,500 for the year, but man, last week sucked. I just got hammered last week with some bad luck, but it's part of sports betting, right? It's why you have a bankroll and you're betting. You know, you're supposed to bet 2% of your bankroll every game. That is not what the mass majority. And I don't do that shit. I'm betting more than that. You got to have a little bit of fun with that, right? Yeah, I mean, this was a lot of fun. We're gonna have a ton of Breeders' Cup coverage coming up the next couple of weeks. The Monday shows will probably be heavy Breeders' Cup. Maybe we'll sneak a sequence in here or there, but it's going to be a lot of Breeders' Cup talk on the Mondays leading up to next week. I got to mention again, congratulations to everyone who qualified through in the Racing Dudes Tournament Challenge this weekend. The next Racing Dudes Tournament Challenge will be Breeders' Cup, so make sure you get yourself ready for that. There were 50 entrants, or almost 50 entrants. I think 9 people made the finals. That's a free $500 in the finals there. So everyone who qualifies through to the finals gets a shot at $500 for free. The next one's at the Breeders' Cup, so you have no excuse not to play because you've already handicapped all those races.
Unless you're just lazy like me and you forget to sign up. But don't do that. Don't be like Magic. That's just a good rule of thumb for life in general. Don't be like Magic. Be like Robert. Robert's very nice. Says, appreciate y'all. Great job, guys. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Truth Exposed. I saw your comments in the chat. We don't go over them, but I saw them. That was pretty funny. Very happy you're all here. Remember, 3 to 4 weeks, we're all going to be together in Lexington. It's going to be a lot of fun. Until next time, I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
Good luck this week. We'll see you on Thursday, if not Wednesday morning. Peace.
The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDunes.com.